It's time for another episode of the Young Rich podcast. Again, it is your boy Rich, Young Rich, however you want to introduce myself and remember my name. Back again with another episode. Today, we're going to be discussing, obviously, talk about a little bit about the NBA, discussing the finals that are about to start up very, very soon. I mean, it's been a very entertaining weekend. Very boring weekend. No basketball, no hockey for the past couple days, and for the next couple days as well. A lot of these big sports that are deep in the postseason obviously have stopped. Now we're focused to be paying a lot of attention to WNBA, which has been interesting. Which is again something else we'll discuss a little bit later in today's episode. But just it's been boring having to watch a lot of baseball. Baseball is cool and all, but it's just a hard sport to keep up to. Obviously a couple people getting another person today just got banned for life or for a couple seasons at least in the MLB due to gambling. So, a lot of things have been going on. I'm definitely excited for today's episode. I feel like there's just a lot of good things to discuss. A lot of huge things have gone on these past couple days that I would like to get into. And with that being said, first topic of discussion for today. Listen, the NBA Finals again. It's going to be starting very, very soon. They've had this long break in between. But what does winning these finals mean for these NBA teams, right? Okay, for Dallas Mavericks, right? You've won a championship before. You had Dirk Nowitzki, who was supposed to be the best Dallas Maverick ever in history, in franchise history. Dirk was that guy. He was the one of one. He was the legend that was never going to be touched, right? And now you got a guy named Luka Doncic who's doing the exact same thing at a very younger age and has been, more decorated for that being that young. 5 first team all NBAs, MVP discussion this year and last year, was second in NBA and MVP voting this year, and what does winning a finals mean for him as a player? Well, not only will he become one of the fifth youngest superstar, one of the youngest superstars to ever win a chip, right? Younger than LeBron, younger than Kobe, younger than Shaq, younger than Michael Jordan, younger than all these greats, right? And to have an accomplishment like that not only solidifies you as what we've been waiting for Luka to become, which is the best basketball player in the world, right? And this title, again, has been very foreign dominated, going from Giannis to Jokic and to even the Embiid being in that discussion the year he won MVP, So to have that title, to have that ring and chance to solidify yourself as the best player in the world at such a young age, it's just is such a crazy accomplishment, right? You solidify yourself as the face of the NBA going forward, as one of the best players in the NBA, and to do it at this young of an age. This Dallas Mavericks team again is very, very young. Derek Lively's only 20 years old, Daniel Gafford 25, PJ Washington 25. The oldest player on this team is Kyrie Irving. Or one of the oldest guys is Kyrie Irving on this team. So the youth on this team is just like the beginning of what's to come. This team can really dominate, and the way they've been playing together has just been perfect. They've been playing phenomenal basketball, dominating on both sides of the ball, having Luka and Kyrie buying in on both sides of the ball. And for Luka to put himself in a category like that, as elite as that, you're putting yourself in the MJ, the Kobe, the LeBron, like the GOATs of our league, the guys who were the top three NBA GOAT, greatest basketball player discussions. Those three guys are in the discussion, right? For most people. And, to be including that type of conversation at such a young age is just crazy. Because it's not like and this is what amazes me when it comes to sports in general. You see a player, you're like, that is never going to be touched. Nobody's going to come in to the NFL, to the NBA, to the MLB, whatever, and come in and dominate like this. Nobody, that is never going to be repeated. A player of this caliber, we're never going to see again. We know one day it's going to happen. For the most part, we are almost I'm 90% certain, records will be beaten, right? Eventually, depending on how long it takes, however way it is broken. I believe records and players' greatness will eventually be overtook and surpassed, right? And that's exactly what's happening. He's in not happening, but he's in that discussion, and he's putting himself on a trajectory to be in that discussion and to take over those ranks, because it's not like he went out here and did it as a number 2 option, or he did it, on a team where he wasn't the number 1 player. He's been the best player on that team since he's gotten there. He willed his team to get there, Western Conference Finals once where you lost short to the Warriors, and then you come back, you miss the playoffs, you come back with a vengeance, you get Kyrie, you restructure this roster, and boom, now you're right back in the NBA. You're in the NBA Finals for the first time against a team like the Boston Celtics. And again, this is just going to mean everything for Luka going forward, right? You get your championship, you just solidify yourself as one of the best, as the best player in the league. You solidify yourself as one of the best players we've seen, scoring wise, what you can do, playmaking ability, there's how you play basketball is just going to be otherworldly, and you get to cement yourself with a legacy of your own, and I expect, if he was to pull it off right now, there would be more coming down the line. So, his legacy, his story can just continue to be built on his name and Luka Doncic as a whole, And for Kyrie Irving, another guy who deserves some love if they do win this championship, is Kyrie Irving not only gets to recreate his past and the bad runs he's had and the failures he's had with teams, the big three in Brooklyn, the falling out in Brooklyn, the way he went out against Boston, he already went out and apologized for saying that wasn't his true self last time he was in Boston, so you have a chance to give it to the Boston fans, to the people who, they kind of threw you out, gave you, and with some in not the nicest of ways, you guys parted ways on bad notes, bad terms and stuff, so this is a way to kind of, show them that they were wrong, show them what kind of player you've been, and show these other teams what you are about. And alongside rewriting his own legacy, Kyrie Irving has the chance to solidify himself as not only to be one of the best number twos in basketball, one of the best Robins in the game that we've ever seen, with his ability to score and his clutch shot making ability, deep down the stretch when you need a big bucket. Kyrie Irving's there to bail you out. He can help Luka Doncic, and that 1-2 punch just closing out a game is just almost unstoppable. Like, what are you going to do? It's just good shot after good shot after good shot and great offense, and then buying in on defense, and this can give him a chance to, I've heard it in the discussion before, being a top 10 point guard ever. Like, winning a championship, winning a second one can really jump you on top of that list. We know you have the talent. We know you have the skills, to be in that discussion, but you haven't had the resume to be in that discussion. A lot of failed projects, a lot of missed opportunities earlier in your career, and now you have a chance to rectify all that stuff and win a championship and prove everybody wrong, right? And that just holds so much name to your value as a player and what you mean to the sport and how people will rank you going to the future. And what does it mean for Jason Kidd? I mean, Jason Kidd becomes one of the few to win a championship as a player and as a coach, right? Going to his third NBA championship, first with the Dallas Mavericks, first as a head coach, right? And then you go out there, you have a chance to win, prove everyone who criticized your coaching, said you couldn't get it done, questioned your ability to coach a championship contending team, right? You have the chance to shut those rumors up and to go out there and become the long-term head coach of the Dallas Mavericks, right? I've heard it before. I know darn well everybody else has. You heard people discredit or critique Jason Kidd throughout this season, before the season started, right? They questioned whether he was capable of being a great coach, a playoff contending coach, how much he benefited this team with him at the helm as a coach, right? And you've seen that. You've seen the adjustments he's made in these games, in these past series, the way he played Anthony Edwards, the way they played Rudy Gobert, the way they set up this run. They've played everything phenomenal to a T, and that goes a lot of credit to Jason Kidd. And then when you look at Boston, the Boston side of things, right? And this is kind of like, it's really just it's very mutual for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum in my books, right? You've had these questions about who is the number one option on these teams. Can this team win without a solidified number one absolute bucket getter? Like a Luka on your team, or a Kawhi Leonard on your team, a Steph Curry, who's going to close out those games for you, who's going to be the guy you go to when you need it most, who's going to be the one you could trust to pull you out and get you a win, right? Get you a championship. Okay, and when you start looking at these questions, obviously you know the Boston Celtics as a whole, as a team as a whole, is a very solid team. Now, you look at this team as a whole. Yes, this Boston Celtics team is clutch as a whole, but when you look at Jason Tatum, he's been questioned all year long. Is he a clutch time player? Can he come through in the clutch when you need him most? Because for the most part, from what I've seen from Jason Tatum in particular, this entire playoff run, is he cannot be trusted when it comes down the stretch when it matters most, right? Jaylen Brown's been getting him out of a lot of holes. Derek White just hit a game-winning shot the other night. It's been spread around with KP coming back. It could possibly make everything easier for you. but you can't finish, right? You take a lot of tough shots. You're so jump shot reliant in your offense. Jaylen Brown's been outperforming you this postseason run. So here goes the questions. Not only can Jason Tatum be the one to prove I am the number one guy on a championship winning team. Okay, I am the guy that can get us to the promised land, but he could also hurt himself and prove that Jaylen Brown is a more efficient number one option on this team than Jason Tatum, right? So this can kind of go both ways for both players. You can prove that you are a 1-2 punch, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, 1-2, Batman and Robin, or Jaylen Brown could prove that he is the Batman that we've all been missing and looking for on this Boston Celtics team, right? And then if you're Drew Holiday, you're telling Milwaukee Bucks, look, you thought I had no good basketball left in me, and here I am. Play some great basketball, efficient basketball, and winning a championship while you guys were getting out there, getting outworked by the Indiana Pacers. You guys got rid of me for Dame Lillard, and he got out here getting taken home, getting eliminated by the Indiana Pacers. There's Drew Holiday has a lot of room to talk. I mean, at least he's back in the NBA championship, in the NBA Finals. So competing for a championship, unlike Giannis and Dame and those guys in Milwaukee, But again, so this can kind of go both ways for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I'm leaning towards the Jaylen Brown is more of a number one than anything else. That's really where I've been leaning towards these last 2 years specifically. So we'll definitely see. I mean, now there is no excuses. You have to answer. You've had worries about your road to the championship, to the finals. Playing teams that have been injured. No, just Jimmy Butler. No Donovan Mitchell. No Jared Allen. No Tyrese Halliburton for Game 3 and 4. So there's been a lot of questions about how you guys got there, how you made it there, but now you have the chance to not only help yourself and solidify yourself as not only an NBA champion, but one of the better players in our league, right? But you can also hurt yourself. So we'll see how this all plays out because the storylines can be crazy by the end of this one, right? And then, obviously, getting into the next topic of discussion is the WNBA and Caitlin Clark, right? Caitlin Clark is, again, a generational talent, right? I compare her to like Wembanyama coming into the league. Someone who does these remarkable things, right? Who's this freak athlete who is one of the best prospects you've ever seen. You just can't help yourself but drool at the idea of what she can become and what she is as a player, right? And as a name, as a market, as a brand, right? And she's proven that, not only with all the other countless deals she's been offered. I mean, one of the first WNBA players to be signed with Wilson, one of the first WNBA players to be signed with Nike. You have this girl who brought in all this attention from college, right? Alongside Angel Reese. Her going head to toe all the time brought in a lot of people. And this whole rookie class is supposed to be great and is supposed to benefit the WNBA. A lot of eyes is on this rookie class. A lot of eyes is on this future. This is supposed to be one of the deepest WNBA classes ever, right? One of the best WNBA draft classes we've ever seen, right? And for someone who hasn't watched every bit of WNBA basketball. I mean, these last 2 to 3 years, I've been paying a lot more attention to it. This year, I'm paying close attention to it, obviously because of Caitlin Clark, So to hear something like that, I feel like it's a good time to really lock in and focus on this next wave of youth in the WNBA, But with WNBA, obviously, everybody's heard about it, right? You've heard it on Pat McAfee's podcast. You heard it on First Take the other day, on Monday, right? You heard it everywhere, right? Caitlin Clark is getting the cheap shotted. Caitlin Clark is getting hunted in the WNBA. The girls in the W don't seem to like her. They don't seem to appreciate the attention and the marketing she's bringing towards the WNBA. You've heard Draymond Green out here saying they need an enforcer to back her up, right? On Indiana Fever, and they need to get it ASAP, right? So I mean, I love the drama, right? I live for storylines. As a casual fan, a WA fan, I would say it's more interesting to see storylines, to see drama build up, and to see those matchups. These players go head to head. Someone was talking about somebody, and next thing you know, you're hooping against each other, and you're playing. All that stuff makes everything better. It makes the sports better. It makes the games better. The energy better. The atmosphere better. As a fan, right? Okay, but the whole story, the whole agenda of Caitlin Clark is getting hunted and targeted, right? But you look at what she means to the WNBA, right? And you look at her image, her name, and what she's worth, right? Her marketing value, her NIL that she brought in from college, being the most viewed college women basketball player in a very long time, and then the national, or excuse me, when she played LSU, was the most viewed game since the second most viewed game in a very long time, since what Michael Jordan and Larry Bird played in the March Madness Finals. So again, you understand. We all understand what is the purpose of trying to why all this is such a big deal, right? Because if they were doing this to anybody else, you wouldn't be talking about it, you wouldn't be discussing it. But because it's Caitlin Clark, and because she's at the top of the WNBA in terms of market value and her name and her image and her likeness, we're going to be discussing about her, right? And I've also heard people get upset at certain analysts, specifically on First Take. You heard, I forget her name, but she was out there talking about Stephen A. You had this big platform, you didn't want to use it on WNBA now, but now because it's relevant, you want to talk about the WNBA. Now because WNBA is bringing in numbers, bringing in views, now you want to talk about the WNBA, which he kind of took. It was a shot, obviously, kind of took a little personal, but that's Stephen A. He deserved that one, okay? So it's all how it is, right? And then you start to see, there was discussions about Caitlin Clark and her team being the first teams to get the charter. Again, I don't know if this is 100% accurate. I don't know all the information and drama behind the WNBA. I'm still trying to look into things. But the WNBA has had players tweet at them about their charter situation. Indiana Fever got it first. Why? Because Caitlin Clark is a part of that team. They got access to it first, and I'm not sure who else still gets access to that today. So, again, that is totally up for, grabs. I have no idea how all that stuff works, right? I'm just here to break it down for you and give you my best, honest opinion on the situation, right? But, the way I look at it is LeBron James, he is the face of the NBA. He's been the face of the NBA for a very long time, right? Since he came into the league, he lived up to the expectations. He made a finals very early, and he lived up to the hype of who he was supposed to be, right? And he did that throughout his entire career. So, you look at even him now. You look at him, he gets a little bit of special treatment. He gets some special treatment. Why? Because he's LeBron James. He brings in the names. He brings in the ticket sales. You put him on your team, he's going to add to your revenue, bring more people in. People are excited to see LeBron James. And now Caitlin Clark, there are little girls in the stands excited to see Caitlin Clark play. So is there a little bit of favoritism for the most marketable player in the league? Yes, because you have to build off of what she gives you. I totally understand the players in wanting equal love to the scene, right? They want the league to be successful for the players that are in there, the teams that are in there, not just one girl being the reason she is bringing in all these views, right? So I get that, right? I completely 100% get what you're trying to do. But at the end of the day, D'Angelo Russell is a great player. Are we watching the Los Angeles Lakers to watch D'Angelo Russell? No. If you're not a casual fan or a diehard sports fan, and basketball fan, you're not going to be watching D'Angelo Russell at all. Because if he's playing in Minnesota, you're not even going to know who D'Angelo Russell is. But you will know who LeBron James is. Whether you live in Cleveland, Minnesota, you're a casual, you're a diehard. Okay, you will know who LeBron James is because of his name, and that's how Caitlin Clark is in the WNBA. You know who she is because of her name, right? People are watching the WNBA now more than ever because of Caitlin Clark. And Angel Reese had said this on an interview, I believe it was this morning before the game later tonight against Liberty, the New York Liberty, right? But she had said that she's going to take the bad guy role. She also is bringing in all these viewers on herself. She was a part of how many views her and Caitlin Clark were both getting in college, and how their game together against each other got so many viewers, world record viewers, right? And she's saying that's why she's also got sold out arenas and thousands of fans watching her on TV, and so she wanted to take some credit. She says, I do take credit for that because I did build that. I did bring that here, right? And again, that's true. That is true. But how many people were talking about Caitlin Clark over you? When you are playing Caitlin Clark for the second time, how many people were there to watch Caitlin Clark break the record, win a national championship for the first time? How many people? I know I was. I know I heard about Angel Reese, but I knew I wasn't sitting there watching the college basketball, women's college basketball for Angel Reese. I knew who she was. I seen her stuff. In last year, I seen she won a national championship the year before that. So I seen she was talking shit to Caitlin Clark, and then so I understand what she's coming from. She was one of the biggest women's faces of college sports this year in NIL. Okay, so I get it, I understand, but at the same time, Caitlin Clark just holds so much value, that it's all we're gonna talk about. If somebody wants to hit her with a cheap shot, we're gonna talk about it. And I don't mind the whole cheap shotting stuff, the whole hard fouls, getting in someone's face, talking shit, because it's part of the game. Every rookie had to go through their stuff. Kobe with his 4 air balls. Everybody was hating on him. Everybody, they don't want to give him the keys to LA. And then him and Shaq, Shaq said, "I'm number one. I'm Batman. You're Robin." Blah blah. He didn't want to be none of that, right? And when he first got there, nobody wanted to play him because he was so young coming out of high school. LeBron, same situation. So young coming out of high school. Nobody respected him. You had his own teammates his rookie year that didn't want to play with him, right? So, again, everybody goes through this, bro. You're not going to get your whistle rookie year. Caitlin Clark has not complained about it, right? Other than week 1, the very first game she played, she argued to the ref about a couple calls, right? But other than that, she hasn't done anything else. She hasn't complained. She sat there. She's took it on the chin like a true champion should, right? You go through those bumps and bruises with your head held high, right? And so she's doing exactly that. And I think she's doing a great job of handling all the animosity going on right now with everybody talking about her name, people, wanting to put her on the ground, put her on her back, So, again, I think she's doing a great job. I would like to see, and I'm not the only one that says this, her team get a little bit more aggressive and get up in somebody else's face, like Angel Reese and Kennedy Carter, Chicago Sky's guard, they both were in there talking about, I'm gonna hold my ground, I'm a dog, all this, so they're talking, they're yapping, and I would like to see someone from Indiana come defend Caitlin Clark. Not even defend Caitlin. Oh yes, defend Caitlin Clark and just show some support. Show that you got her back at least. Don't casually walk over there and go pick her up. Go over there, get in someone's face, talk some. Start jawing at each other, start talking, cause that's just what we need to see. That's what we love to see. We love to see these girls. I would love to see these girls, Aaliyah Boston, go up there and go to Kennedy Carter and go get in her face, and then they start jawing at each other. The next thing you know, the next 2 minutes are going to be action-packed. To close out this game, it's going to be action-packed. It's going to be turns. The energy's going to be high, So, again, I think there's a lot of things that we could maximize in the WNBA. But, other than that, I see nothing wrong with Caitlin Clark getting a hard time. It is a part of the league. It's a part of the growing process, being a rookie that's so highly talented. Victor Wembanyama, you've seen his struggles early on, his inefficiencies. People weren't hating on him, but he definitely wasn't getting his way like he would. People were also hating on him. Chris Paul, he couldn't post, or that was actually Chet Holmgren. That wasn't Wemby. But anyways, everybody has their rookie woes, and things like that. So I think Caitlin Clark's going to be just fine, and this league is going to continue to grow. And all eyes on Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. The rematch is coming up, I believe, on the 16th of this month. So stay tuned for that. It will be on TV. It will be a primetime game for WNBA, which is cool. After the NBA playoffs should conclude, if it's in 6. I don't think so. I don't think the finals will be done by then. But keep your eyes on. Keep your eyes tuned and locked in on the WNBA going forward. All right, and then Justin Jefferson, obviously, yesterday just got a generational type extension. 4-year extension, $140 million, $35 million a year, $110 million guaranteed, the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, right? Which was just absolutely ridiculous to see this number drop, right? And so I just want to discuss, because listen, Justin Jefferson, again, is well-deserved of this money. He's been arguably the top 2 wide receivers since he came into the league, and he's continued that. He even had 1,000 yards last year, being injured and playing with, the 4-string quarterback of that team. Them being so down bad at quarterback, they had to trade for Joshua Dobbs to come in there and try to win some games, and then that didn't work out. And then you had Nick Mullins, so he's well-deserved of the money. He's a very, very talented receiver, generational talent, right? We all know this. We all know what Justin Jefferson brings, right? His energy, he's gritty, boom. But, the pros and cons of this contract, and what does this mean, right? Okay, first of all, the pros. The only pros you get if you're the Minnesota is obviously you're locking in your guy for 4 more years. You're locking in the best receiver in the league for 4 more years, right? And I do the abbreviations, the quotations, because I do still think Devontae Adams is the best receiver in football. Don't quote me on that one, all right? But, it's not only did you lock in your receiver for the next 4 years, but you set the table for CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase. And this is more of a pro for CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase, but now I mean just waiting for these guys to break the market again. I will not be surprised if CeeDee and Jamar both just wait it out a little bit and somebody goes for 35.5 or 36 and the next guy goes for 37 and 37.5, whatever. But that's definitely where we're going to have a little pity war for the next extra $1 million that they want, which to me is sometimes just ridiculous, and certain things like that, especially when you're already making $35 million a year. What more do you need, right? But again, I respect everybody for getting paid. Okay, but cons in this situation is obviously if you look at Justin Jefferson, there's $35 million a year for a receiver, which is something we've never seen before. If J.J. McCarthy works out, right, and you're sitting here that year 4, that year 3, when you give him an extension, you are going to have to pay J.J. McCarthy at least if he's a guy you believe in, $40 to $45 million. And, that's a very, very tight salary to be at, or if he exceeds expectations, he could be 55, so it's actually going to keep you in with little wiggle room with the cap, especially if you were to, for whatever reason, something didn't pan down, he requested a trade, and then you're going to be in dead cap for, so things like that can also happen. But it is so. Actually, one of the benefits to this contract is that it is so front heavy. You have $88 million guaranteed at signing, right? So you are front loading this deal while J.J. McCarthy is still on a rookie contract, which allows you to, save the cap space later in those years. Unlike what Dak Prescott and Dallas and them did, right? They pushed all that cap space to the end, right? But they pushed it all the way forward, which is a smart move because, realistically, you got to be ahead of the books, and they are planning to be ahead of the books. They're planning to get a lot of this contract done in the beginning, get you some early hard cap in the beginning, and in the later years be a normal, typical contract, which is easier to work with like that, which is, again, the smart thing to do because I know dang well Denver and Denver be wishing they did something like that right now. But, I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous that you think about it, that multiple receivers will be getting $35 million a year, because it's just crazy to show, what this league has turned into, and for a very dynamic receiver. So, again, because even Amon-Ra St. Brown was getting paid, 30? So, it's just crazy. I think 31 and a half to be perfect about that, But another thing I wanted to discuss is obviously Tyreek Hill, right? Tyreek Hill, again, has had a phenomenal season last year, was on pace to break the single receiving record, yards record. Didn't come through, though. He missed a game or two, but again, he just fell short. A lot of teams were just keen in on him towards the end of the year. But I did want to discuss the fact that his agent did go on with who? I don't remember who specifically he was with, but he went on to an interview when he was interviewed and asked about the whole Justin Jefferson getting paid situation, and apparently Tyreek Hill wants more money, right? He wants to restructure his contract to where he's getting top 5 in his position worth, right? Currently he's getting paid $30 million a year, which I believe is 5th before Justin Jefferson signed, so I'm going to say 6th, and he's assuming CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Jefferson and Jamar Chase are both going to get paid around that same market. So I'm assuming he wants to get paid somewhere around $35 million, which is a $5 million addition to what it is. But agent Drew Rosenthal, right? But to me, this bothers me so much because, listen, you already are bought into your contract. You bought in. You are paid like the number one receiver. You were the guy who broke the market just 2 years ago. You were the guy who got paid more than Devontae Adams. However that works, okay. But you have the obligation to play through this contract. You still have 2 years left on your deal. You're making $60 million a year, right? Go out there and just save the cap room. You already vouched. You vouched for Jalen Waddle to go get paid. You vouched for him not to be traded. So they went out there, they made you happy, they paid him. And now you're asking for more money? You're just going to put your team in a bad situation with just making yourself as a person tighter on cap. Your team just had to let go of a couple key pieces due to the fact you didn't have the room to do that, right? You brought in a couple veterans, right? So and then you have the Tua extension possibility. Like, what are they going to do with Tua? How are they going to extend him? So this is just not something I would like to see as a player who's already making like generational wealth. Is $5 million going to do that much different for you? You've already been making a lot of money. You got paid by Kansas City. Wasn't what you were getting paid now, but you were still getting paid by Kansas City. You still have another 2 years in your deal. You can still get signed to one other fat of the contract, So, again, I just don't like it. It just gives me the whole, money hungry, greedy situation. But, I mean, if that's your game, that's your game. I'm not going to knock a guy for, going to chase after your money, whatever, but, I already don't like Tyreek Hill as it is, so hearing this just gave me another reason to talk about him and to bring him up. But I really hope he will reconsider this whole thing, because it's gonna put your team in a tighter situation on yourself when you already committed yourself to a 4-year deal. That's locked, that's inked up. Hopefully it doesn't make anything dramatic about the situation and stop showing up and things like that. But we'll definitely see. And then today, right before I got on to record, actually, Christian McCaffrey signs a 2-year extension, $38 million, $19 million a year, the highest paid running back in the NFL, right? And again, well deserved. I mean, this guy is a generational talent, a do-it-all back, a guy who was a workhorse this year. A guy who we questioned, could he be the bull cow for a Super Bowl team? Could he take enough hits, get enough touches, and still get his body there to the finish line, right? Could he stay healthy the entire season? And he did. He missed one game, I believe, which was just because he was injured early in the year, just like hamstring tightness or something, or maybe whatever. But he missed one game. Other than that, he was absolutely phenomenal. He was their best player in my eyes in the Super Bowl, right? Even you gave him the ball, he was doing something with it. A guy who I think should have got some more touches in the Super Bowl. I would have liked to see, But again, he lived up to the expectations. He got signed this money, and you go to San Francisco. You're the second best player on your team for both years. It's just great to see. And you locked him in for another 2 years. Kyle Shanahan loves Christian McCaffrey. He brought his guy back, made him happy. $19 million a year. He's the only running back that's not worrying about having to get paid long term. So it's great to see for Christian McCaffrey. I'm happy for him. Coming from Carolina to that, I'm nothing but happy for him, right? And then the 49ers, right? You just signed Christian McCaffrey. You signed Jawan Jennings. So what does this mean for Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy? Well, first and foremost, Brandon Ayuk, he said he wants Amon-Ra St. Brown numbers. And now that Justin Jefferson just got paid, and you can count on it, Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb are both about to get paid around that same number, maybe a little bit more. Now Brandon Ayuk has a little bit more leverage room to say, here's where 1, 2, 3 are, and I'm right here at 5. Amon-Ra St. Brown at 31, Tyreek at 30. So there's your room from 30 to 35. That is your window if you want to pay him, right? And I just don't see a world how they can absolutely afford it. To me, if they end up signing this guy, it's going to be absolutely crazy how they get this guy that money, because to me, there's no way in possible hell they can afford that. They can't. The only way they're going to be able to afford him is if he stays on a franchise tag. If he wants $30 million a year, it's not going to happen. He's not going to be able to. It just won't work out, because you're saying as a team, you're not going to go extend Brock Purdy, right? And even if Brock Purdy takes a team-friendly deal, there's no, to me, I don't know the numbers, but there's no possible way you can continue to keep this team together. So again, there's a lot of things you have to figure out. Who you want to bring in for the price you want to bring him in. If Brock Purdy has another great year, are you going to extend him? What's the price you're going to extend him at? So again, there's a lot of questions going on for Brock Purdy. This upcoming year, a lot of pressure is on him. Again, you are a Super Bowl or bust team. You've been that team for the last 3 years. And again, here's your, to me, I said this last year, but this is going to be your last shot. With this exact roster, this will be your last shot again. So we'll definitely see how that all plays out. But Brandon Ayuk, I mean, listen, at this point, it's time for him to get traded. If Brandon Ayuk needs to go somebody else, I would be a fan if he went to a team like like Carolina, a team who could give up picks and you could use that young player. Maybe a team like the Commanders who could use another receiver out there. What was the other team that they were just talking about today? You have a team like Buffalo who can do it, right? Or the Los Angeles Chargers, a team who could go out there. Actually, Buffalo can't do that. They had to let go a lot of people. I rephrased my statement with Buffalo. But the Los Angeles Chargers was one team that I really heard, right? You need a receiver to go out there. You can go out there. You can trade for the picks. You'll give up those picks to get that type of wide receiver. You give Justin Herbert a legitimate number one. And alongside McConkey, who I think is going to be great this year, you have Josh Palmer, and you have some great pieces around there. So we'll definitely see how that plays out. I'm hoping he gets traded somewhere, anywhere, where he can go be successful. I would like to see him go to a team that needs a good wide receiver to add to their core, like a team like the Carolina Panthers, who they will gladly take on a player like that and add to their cap space, because Bryce Young still got a couple more years before he's going to get extended. The only people you really are paying is those two O-linemen that you just picked up, and Adam Thielen's going to be a free agent in the upcoming years, so his contract will be washed when it's time for Bryce Young to get an extension, if that ends up happening. So again, I am obviously we all going to keep our eyes on this Brandon Ayuk situation. Where will he go? What will happen for him? Because again, I think he's one of the most talented receivers we've seen in the league this past year, right? And his ability to route run and create separation is just phenomenal. His route running ability is exceptional. Top 5 route runner in the league. Like, there's not many better than him route running wise. And does he benefit? I hear this question a lot. Does he benefit from the system, or does he elevate the system? And I think he elevates the system, right? I think both. I think he benefits from having a genius in Kyle Shanahan, but he's also a remarkable talent that he's going to elevate his teammates and elevate Brock Purdy's play. And he is a great complement piece to Deebo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey. Guys who like to do it, everything underneath, and that's basically 2 running backs you got right there. So, the way the offense is set up. And then you still have George Kittle. It's just remarkable how absolutely deep they are. But Lamar Jackson missing OTAs, right? And again, something that has to be discussed, right? Because you are Lamar Jackson. You have just gotten paid from the notes, right? You just got paid your contract that you wanted. You got paid $250 million, $50 million a year. You didn't want your franchise tag. You want to get paid like the best, so they paid you like the best. They wanted you to be MVP type Lamar. You won an MVP, right? Everything is living up to that. You just had a sad year. You went out to Kansas City. You lost at home, right? You fell short to Kansas City at home. You lost your identity halfway through the game. Right, you went out in a very sad fashion, and especially for me, someone who's been watching Lamar Jackson since he was at Louisville, since before that year he won the Heisman, right? I've been watching Lamar Jackson for so long, and I've wanted him to win and succeed, and to see him not be at OTAs really looks at me the wrong way, because, listen, you got paid, right? You're the only offensive starter not to be there, right? Which means you had Zay Flowers, you had your offensive lineman, you had Mark Andrews, you had Derrick Henry was there. Why are you not at your OTAs? I understand they're voluntary, right? But, okay, you need to go out there and just be there for your team. You've got to set the tone and say that you want to be great. You can't just go out there and talk about you want to be legendary and you want to be this and you want to be that. You've got to go out there and show it, right? You have Patrick Mahomes. He's flying his guys out there to Dallas to go work and be great. He's going out there. He's showing up to OTAs. Joe Burrow coming back from OTAs. He's been there. He's showing up, right? You have all these guys who want to be great, and they're showing up for their teammates, for these young guys, trying to teach their young guys how to get equipped to the NFL life, to adjusting to the offense and things like that. And you've got to be there for that, right? These guys look up to you. When you get drafted by the Baltimore Ravens, you are thinking instantly, man, Lamar Jackson, I'm playing with Lamar Jackson, I'm playing with Lamar Jackson, MVP, 2-time MVP. This is great. This is great. It's gonna be so fun, right? Derrick Henry, I'm playing with Lamar Jackson, 2-time MVP. It's gonna be great. And you don't get to see him at voluntary OTAs. It's just, it rubs people the wrong way. It rubs me the wrong way, because I'm all for, like, I even hate when people are sitting out for contracts, right? Like, because you're making a lot of money anyways. So I hate when people sit up for contracts, and this sets a bad tone, a bad energy, right? But okay, I respect for what they have to do, because at the end of the day, it's your money at the end of the day. So you got to do what you got to do, right? But when you are held up at that high of a player, with that type of accolades, and the goal for your team is to win a Super Bowl, you've got to be there for your guys. You got to show these guys that you care and you mean business, especially if the other greats in the league are doing so. The Patrick Mahomes, the Joe Burrows, those guys are there for their teammates. Joe Burrow's coming back healthy, trying to prove that he can get back to the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes has been running your division, your conference for 2 straight years, and they're trying to go on a three-peat. They're in there working. Patrick Mahomes is there at OTAs, you know, and so it just blows my mind when things like this happen. Okay, and Lamar Jackson, not only for missing out on OTAs, is missing $750,000, right, which is almost $1 million. You cried so much about that money, and now you're missing for $750,000. You didn't say anything to your coach. You didn't say anything to these guys, and now there's speculations that Harbaugh was not very happy with you missing, and he wanted to throw you under the bus by answering these questions that apparently he doesn't typically answer in an interview. So there's a lot of things that you have to put in consideration in a situation like this, but again, I want Lamar Jackson to succeed, so I would like to see him be there for his teammates, right? And for whatever reason, if you're not there for something going on, you have something going on with your family, whatever, your mental, whatever, right? You've got to say something to someone, like the least you can do, okay? If you're supposed to be a leader of the locker room, at quarterback, you're supposed to be a leader of the young men coming in of the team. You're supposed to be the leader of everybody. They look to you when they need guidance. They need something. You're supposed to be that guy to answer them, right? And if you can't even just pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm not going to be at OTAs for whatever reason, right? So what? I don't care for the money, and it's not going to be that I got XYZ going on. You got to do that, To me, at least you can do that. I understand different levels. These guys are getting paid millions, and it's voluntary at the end of the day, But I would like to see him take that on himself and being a better leader and letting the team know where he's at, okay? And to finish off today's episode, all right, I thought I had to do this. I've been trying to do this for a long time, so I had to go back, look at every quarterback situation, and go from there. And I've done this before, but here we are. We've got the quarterback rankings post-draft, post-free agency, post-complete offseason, going into the next year, right? And this is projections on how I expect them to succeed next year, and this is based on their talent and God-given ability, right? So this does not have anything to do with the postseason, no playoff predictions or push any of that stuff. This is all for regular season and how I think they're going to perform next year and how I think they're going to be viewed next year going to finish the year, right? So, number one, right? Obviously, tier one has got to be Patrick Mahomes on his own tier, right? He is the two-time back-to-back Super Bowl champion. He's going for a three-peat, right? Undisputed number one spot. Number two, Joe Burrow. I know he's coming back from an injury. I believe a healthy Joe Burrow is going to be the best thing possible. I've said this before. Joe Burrow is the QB2 in the league when he is healthy, and I think he's going to come here and he's going to prove a point, especially with Jamar Chase and possibly T. Higgins still being on that team, right? And then you have Josh Allen. I know they're having a bit of a rebuild year. They had to cut some guys due to cap. They let go of Stephon Diggs. You just drafted a wide receiver, Keon Coleman, who I think very highly of, right? You still have James Cook, who dominated the run game. You still have Dalton Kincaid, right? Okay, so, and Josh Allen last year was a very good quarterback. They won a lot of games running the ball, using him as a running quarterback, right? And they dominated that way with good defense and being able to run the ball and close out games. So I expect him to have a kind of Superman-like year now that it'll be a lot more Josh Allen reliant, right? CJ Stroud, number three. Again, CJ Stroud is just up and coming. I believe he is the top 5, top 4 quarterback in this discussion. I think the addition of Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, Joe Mixon, this team is going to be Tank Dell. It's going to be very, very scary. And defensively, you're adding to your defense. It's going to be a very, very scary quarterback, and I think he's not going to ignore that sophomore slump. Lamar Jackson, again, I think he's going to have a bit of a down year when it comes to statistics and MVP-like year due to the fact he brought in Derrick Henry to run the ball and be a hard-nosed team. So again, fifth best quarterback in tier 2. Is not bad, right? Not bad at all. And then tier 3, here we go. Tier 3, I got Justin Herbert. I mean, quarterback whisperer and Coach Harbaugh. Again, he's supposed to fix the whole situation. I know you don't have many wide receivers right now. I do expect you to possibly trade for one or McConkey to come in and be an absolute stud. I think he's going to be a great player for you guys this year. I think we're going to see a better Justin Herbert than we've seen in the past. I think he's going to be more technically sound. He's probably going to have his ideally probably one of his better years of his career. I don't know if statistically he'll be have his best year or go blow out the numbers in the statistics category just due to the fact you don't have many receivers on this team. But I think Coach Harbaugh is going to put him in the right direction, and they're going to have a very, very good year. Brock Purdy, again, benefits from the system, but you can't knock him for what he does in the system, right? He performs. I don't know if he elevates his teammates, but he performs, makes the right throws, go through his progressions. He's shown that he can, create on his own with his feet and using his feet to make defenses pay when they don't respect his ability to run. Matthew Stafford, again, you have a very young defense, a rebuild that we kind of didn't see coming, right? You still have Cooper Kupp, you still have Puka Nacua, right? You have Kyrie Williams, you have Blake Corum, who you just drafted, who I love, who I think is going to be a great 1-2 punch combo. I love this team going the direction. You still have Sean McVay again to lead you, and I think it's going to be a great team. Jared Goff, I don't have to say anything else. He was a fringe top 10 QB going into last year, to end last year. He's a fringe top 10 QB going into last year. He was one bad half football away from the Super Bowl. I don't want to hear it. You brought back Amon-Ra St. Brown. You still got Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. I love this guy this year. Dak Prescott. I mean, listen, Dallas Cowboy fans, hate me if you want. Every time Dak Prescott has faced a little bit of adversity, he's got absolutely chokeslammed, so I expect him to do nothing else but get chokeslammed this year. He's playing for a contract. I don't know how he's going to do. I expect him to absolutely to take a huge jump off of last year. Trevor Lawrence, a guy who was, 8-3 before he ended up getting hurt. He's only ever played one good half of football throughout his entire career in the NFL. So, again, I do want to see him play a full season consistently that good before I put him up here in this type of category. Jalen Hurts, a guy who has had 2 years where you don't really know what to expect. You haven't seen great things from him at all. Even the year he ended up getting paid, he had one great game, which is in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, right? Which he ended up losing, but it was still in the Chiefs. And last year, nothing looked right for that Philadelphia team after they started 8-1. Even when they were winning those games, did nothing look good. Jordan Love, I expect you to take a huge jump going into the next year. You showed everybody the talent you have. Now you have to answer. You're about to get an extension to prove you are the quarterback of the future, so go out and prove it, right? Tua Tagovailoa, again, he is hurting his team. He is the weakest link on his team, right? He can't go through any progressions. If his first read is not there, he's not making any type of good throws. Anytime a hard-nosed team comes into Miami or they go playing the Colts, he forgets how to throw a football. Terrible, okay? Geno Smith, again, I put him in the same type of category as Tua because he is the limitations to his offense, right? He is the weakest link in my eyes to that offense, but I do think he is a more complete version of Tua, right? So Tua looks better because of his offense is better, his weapons around him are better, but Geno Smith makes still plays good for his system, right? Would benefit from better players, I believe, or maybe even a better coach in that situation. We will see. Aaron Rodgers, again, I just don't know what to expect from him, right? We know what he can be. We know what he is. We know what he used to be. He hasn't thrown for a 300-yard game in about 2 years, right? 700-something days, which is absolutely insane, right? So I expect him tier 5 is respectable. Kyler Murray, a guy you finally got him a generational receiver. Him and D-Hop, when they first got together, they started 7-0. I'm not saying they're going to start 7-0. They were a scrappy team last year. I expect Kyler Murray to take a big jump, be right over. Bryce Young is someone who I think very highly of this upcoming year, right? Bryce Young has the ability to have LeGenet from Ole Miss, right? From South Carolina, right? He's a good receiver. You also have Deontay Johnson, who I think very highly of, and you have the opportunity to even possibly draft another QB, to trade for another receiver with T. Higgins and Brandon Ayuk being on the market, right? And then Baker Mayfield. I'm putting him right at 20 due to the fact that he is, what you're going to give Baker Mayfield. I don't know how he's going to react without having his old OC and Dave Canales, who just went to Bryce Young and is now the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. I don't know how Baker Mayfield's going to do with consistency. Is he going to re-achieve those numbers? Atlanta just got better. The Saints are still the Saints. The Panthers just got better. So I don't know how you're going to feel about this division, especially when you won these games very, very close, right? And then honorable mentions, Caleb Williams. I think if he plays B- football, C+ football, he could be an 8-9 win team, right? Anthony Richardson, again, who I think very highly of these two guys in particular, right? Anthony Richardson's a great talent, strong arm, dual threat guy. Dude's, 250 pounds, solid, can run a 4.3, solid, right? So I'm not sure where to rank him because I've seen so short of him last year, but hoping to see more from this year. And then Kirk Cousins, again, a guy who he just lost his job. They brought in a guy to replace him when his contract is up. So if he is on the hot spot, right, is he going to be able to answer from pressure? A guy coming off an Achilles tear, now he has to answer the pressure to be good enough to start, because if he is not very good enough, these Atlanta coaches, this Atlanta GM, they're all going to be saying, we brought in Michael Penix because we just love the guy when we seen him throw the ball. And if you're playing poorly for half the season, Michael Penix will slide in that situation and take over, so you have to answer. This is my going into post-free agency, post-draft 2024 top 20 QBs going into next season. And with that being said, hopefully y'all enjoyed today's episode. If you are watching this on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, make sure to like and follow the show. Give it a 5-star rating. It'll help the algorithm, right? And if you're listening to this on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications. Again, road to 5K, still continuing. Appreciate everyone showing me support. And like Kenny Beecham says, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. We out.